Hello, I'm standing on the Kashubian coast, a seemingly remote edge of the world. Behind me is a fishing settlement. The year is 1440, a time of great change. But this isolation is an illusion. This coast fuels a vast and powerful economic empire. Let's meet the family whose lives are tied to the silver tide of the Baltic.
Dawn on the Baltic Sea. For fishermen like Kasimir, the day begins in cold darkness. He and his son Jan work in a practiced rhythm against the sea's heavy pull. Kasimir's hands, hardened by decades of this work, grip the wet, coarse rope. 16-year-old Jan strains his youthful muscles already tested by a man's labor. The net rises from the depths, heavy with the promise of a good catch. This is Baltic herring, the silver currency of the Hanseatic League's vast trade network. A successful haul, thousands of fish, representing weeks of potential security for the family. For Jan, this is a moment of pride, a sign of his growing competence. Kasimir allows himself a brief nod of relief. Today, the sea has been generous. The small boat, laden with its precious cargo, turns back towards the distant shore. On the beach, Elzbieta, Kasimir's wife, has already begun the day's second crucial task. She prepares the brine, a precise mixture of water and expensive league-controlled salt. Every grain of this Lüneburg salt is a carefully guarded commodity, essential for preservation. The boat lands. Jan leaps ashore, his bare feet sinking into the cold, wet sand. Kasimir begins the back-breaking work of hauling the catch from the boat to the beach. A silent nod passes between husband and wife. No words are needed in this shared toil. Jan carries a basket of fish, already feeling the weight of the family's fortune. The entire catch lies before them, a shimmering mountain of silver against the gray sand. Now, the race against decay begins. The family works as a single efficient unit. Kasimir's knife moves with speed and precision, a skill honed over a lifetime. Each fish is gutted in a single, fluid motion, preparing it for the salt. Elzbieta takes the cleaned fish, plunging them into the carefully prepared brine solution. The salt water begins the curing process, drawing moisture from the herring. Jan then carefully layers the salted fish into a large oak barrel for trade. Between each layer, another generous scoop of salt is added, ensuring long-term preservation. Under the rising sun, their three figures cast long shadows on the sand. Sweat beads on Kasimir's brow. The work is relentless, physically demanding. Elzbieta pauses, assessing their progress. Time is their most precious and fleeting resource. A barrel is filled. This single container could be worth a small fortune in London. Jan uses a heavy stone to hammer the lid tightly into place, sealing the catch. 4 full barrels stand ready, the result of a long night and morning of hard labor. Kasimir claps a hand on Jan's shoulder, a rare and meaningful gesture of approval. Jan looks to his father, his eyes reflecting hope for a profitable season ahead. From above, we see the small family and the tangible result of their struggle. Elzbieta brings out their simple meal, dark rye flatbread, a fisherman's staple. They eat in silence, conserving energy, the day's work only half complete. She passes Kasimir a skin of kvass, a low-alcohol drink made from fermented rye. He drinks deeply, the rough beverage washing away the salt and the morning's chill. The peaceful moment is shattered by a sound that does not belong here, horse hooves. Jan is the first to his feet, his body tensing as he scans the path. Kasimir sets down the waterskin. His expression hardens, all relief vanishing from his face. Elzbieta's eyes narrow. She knows this sound means an unwelcome interruption. On the dune, a figure on horseback appears, Klaus, an agent of the Hanseatic League. He surveys the scene below him with an air of detached, absolute authority. His boots are fine leather, a stark contrast to the family's bare feet. Klaus dismounts with practiced ease, his fine wool cloak marking him as an outsider. He approaches the family, who instinctively draw closer together, a silent, defensive posture. Without a word of greeting, he begins to inspect the barrels of finished herring. His gloved hand taps the oak, assessing their work with a critical eye. Jan clenches his fists at his sides, his youthful defiance meeting cold bureaucracy. Kasimir subtly moves to stand between the agent and his son, a protective shield. Klaus glances at Kasimir, his gaze dismissive, acknowledging him only as an obstacle. His cold, calculating eyes assess the family as if they were livestock. Klaus signals to two men who followed him, who now step forward to assist. At his command, the men use a crowbar to pry open one of the sealed barrels. Kasimir's jaw tightens, but he remains still. Protest is not an option here. The lid comes off, revealing the family's perfectly packed and salted product. From his belt, Klaus produces a small polished stick, avoiding direct contact. He probes the fish, his movements conveying boredom and a sense of entitlement. The stick lifts a single herring into the light, its scales glistening. The family watches, holding their breath. Their entire livelihood is under scrutiny. Elzbieta places a restraining hand on Jan's shoulder, sensing his rising anger. Jan flinches but stays put, trapped between his mother's caution and his own fury. Klaus moves to the next barrel, ordering it opened with an impatient gesture. Here on this beach, Klaus represents a power that is distant, vast, and unchallengeable.
I'm standing by the family's hut. That path is their only link to the market. It leads to the Hansa Kontor in Danzig, the center of the League's regional power. And the League controls everything, especially the salt needed to make this product valuable.
So when an agent like Klaus arrives, it is not a negotiation. It is a verdict.
Klaus now consults a wax tablet, making a note with a sharp metal stylus. He speaks to his men in a low, commanding tone, issuing a new set of instructions. His assistants bring forward scales and empty baskets, preparing for a new procedure. Then, from a pouch, Klaus reveals a small, gleaming metal gauge. He picks up one of the largest herring and methodically places the gauge against it. This instrument represents a new ordinance, a bureaucratic weapon disguised as quality control. Kasimir and Elzbieta exchange a look of dawning horror. They understand this game. Klaus announces the fish meets the new prime grade, tossing it into a separate basket. This prime fish is now designated for the League's tithe and direct export. He then measures a slightly smaller, yet perfectly good fish with a dismissive flick. This one he declares substandard, throwing it onto a pile on the sand. The fish, which yesterday would have been valuable, is now deemed nearly worthless. The process of sorting begins, a cruel and efficient division of the family's labor. Kasimir takes a half step forward, his mouth open to voice a desperate protest. But Elzbieta's hand grips his arm, her eyes pleading with him. Silence is survival. He stops, the unspoken words dying in his throat. He is utterly powerless. The prime pile grows, filled with the very best of their catch. The substandard pile also grows, representing their drastically reduced potential income. On Jan's face, the morning's hope has curdled into bitter, angry disillusionment. Klaus works mechanically, indifferent to the silent tragedy unfolding before him. His men begin scooping the prime herring into the League's own empty barrels. The family can only watch as their carefully packed barrels are emptied and stolen. The veins stand out on Kasimir's clenched fist, a portrait of suppressed rage. Jan's frustration boils over. He kicks a discarded fish head in impotent fury. It's a small, futile act of rebellion against an overwhelming force. Klaus pauses, turning to fix Jan with a look of pure, cold dismissal. The boy recoils, the agent's silent rebuke more chilling than any shouted threat. The League's men seal their barrels, now filled with the family's best fish. A hot wax seal bearing the Hansa insignia is pressed onto the lid. It is official. Klaus gives a curt nod, and his men begin moving the confiscated barrels. The sound of their property being rolled away is the sound of their future shrinking. Kasimir stands frozen, a statue of defeat, watching his hard work disappear. Klaus turns to him, offering a few small coins for the substandard fish. It is a pittance, an insulting fraction of the catch's true market value. Kasimir stares at the coins, then at Klaus, refusing to accept the payment. With a shrug of contempt, Klaus tosses the coins onto the sand at Kasimir's feet. The meager payment lies scattered, a symbol of the family's humiliation. Klaus and his men load their cart, their business here concluded efficiently and ruthlessly. It is Jan who kneels, his shoulders slumped, to pick up the scattered coins. Elzbieta goes to her son, pulling him into an embrace, offering what comfort she can. A single tear of rage and shame traces a path through the grime on Jan's cheek. Klaus mounts his horse, not giving the family a final glance. They are beneath notice. He spurs his horse, and the heavy cart begins its journey back to Danzig. The wheels leave deep ruts in the sand, a scar on the landscape. On Kasimir's face, the fire of anger has been replaced by profound weariness. The cart disappears over the dune, leaving behind a devastating silence. The family is left alone on the vast beach, dwarfed by the sea and sky. They are left with a substandard pile, barely enough to trade for more salt. A fly lands on the pile of fish, the first sign of decay. The harsh midday sun beats down, offering no comfort, only stark reality. Kasimir collapses onto a log, burying his face in his rough, calloused hands. Elzbieta looks at her husband, her expression a mixture of pity and shared pain. Jan stares out at the sea, the coins clutched tightly in his fist. The only sound is the rhythmic wash of the waves, indifferent to human sorrow. From above, their loss is stark. Their world has been irrevocably diminished. As dusk falls, they gather around a small fire, the day's warmth gone. Elzbieta divides a small smoked eel, their meager evening meal. Her hand trembles slightly as she passes a portion to her husband. Kasimir takes the food and eats without a word, his movements slow and heavy. Jan eats mechanically, his gaze lost in the hypnotic dance of the flames. The fire reflects in his eyes, but they hold no warmth, only a new hardness. The meal is consumed in a heavy, oppressive silence, thick with unspoken grief. After eating, Elzbieta resumes her work, salting what little fish remains. Every grain of salt is now more precious than ever. None can be wasted. Kasimir picks up a torn section of his net and begins the patient work of mending. The wooden netting needle passes back and forth, a quiet, repetitive, defiant act. The firelight carves deep shadows onto his face, highlighting his intense concentration. They are not defeated. In the face of ruin, the work simply continues. Jan sits and watches his father, studying the methodical repair of the net. The boyish innocence is gone from his eyes, replaced by a grim understanding. He gets up, moves to his father's side, and picks up a length of twine. Kasimir glances at his son, then gives a slow, almost imperceptible nod. Two pairs of hands, one weathered and one young, now work together in silence. Father and son mend the net, the tool of their survival, preparing for tomorrow. In the encroaching darkness, their small fire is a beacon of resilience.
I'm here by their fire. In the background, you can see the work hasn't stopped.
This is the brutal reality behind the romance of a medieval fisherman's life. Their immense effort primarily enriches powerful men in cities they will never see. And yet, they endure. They mend the net. And tomorrow, they will go to sea again.